Kafka Hibino, a middle-aged, ugly loser who lives in a world filled with Godzilla-like monsters called Kaijus who constantly invade cities all over Japan, dreams to be one of the elite saviors of mankind who take down these monsters. But he is too weak, so instead he works as a sweeper whose job is to clean up the remains of a kaiju's corpse. When monsters like Godzilla, also known as kaiju, appear all over Japan, the nation goes into a state of emergency, calling all the citizens to run for their lives and head to the emergency evacuation center. One of these kaijus wreaks havoc in the city, causing people to wonder if it will be the end for them. On the other hand, the government issues a military unit immediately in order to take down these monstrous beasts. Learning the target location and its length of around 60 meters, which is as tall as a skyscraper, many armed military soldiers surround the kaiju from everywhere and fire missiles at it. It screams slightly in pain, as if it were just bitten by a mere mosquito. The elite force called the Defense Corps 3rd Division also joins in the party to combat this beast, and one of them, a female masked soldier, makes a flashy entrance, jumping from a helicopter while holding an assault rifle. Following her entry, many more GIs jump into the fight scene and attack the kaiju, diverting its attention towards them. In the meantime, their leader, the female soldier named Mina Ashiro, aims a specialized weapon made specifically to eliminate kaijus at the kaiju's heart and fires it, causing the kaiju to blow up in pieces, which also makes it clear that humans cannot be underestimated. After the battle, the sweeper team heads to the fight location to dispose of the remains of the monster, which are scattered everywhere around there. While the machines are getting ready to clean up the area, a middle-aged man named Kafka Hibino, who has been watching everything from a distance while enjoying a hamburger, reveals to be one of the workers as well who is supposed to clean the place. Kafka, who is part of a team of lazy losers known as the Sweepers, whose job it is to clean up the mess caused by kaijus, wonders when he will catch a break. They get to their work unenthusiastically, while on the other hand, the defense corps that has defeated the kaiju gets cheered on by the citizens for their successful defensive victory against the monster. Apparently, they have been working restlessly for the past couple of years to defeat these kaijus, and surprisingly, they have never failed or been injured. Kafka, who has always wanted to become a member of the 3rd Division of the Defense Corps, passes by them, doing his best to ignore the heroes, and goes back to work. Kafka states that his team's battle begins after the 3rd Division's battle ends and proudly claims that his team's work is far harder than the work that the 3rd Division does. Still, no one in the city has ever cared about them, and has never shown any appreciation towards them at all. He unwillingly cuts down the skin of the monster's corpse and begins slicing its meat. Suddenly, one of their members accidentally cuts a blood clot from the monster, causing the hot, burning blood to scatter all around him and burn his knees. So, Kafka quickly comes down to treat his colleagues' fresh wounds, having experienced such injuries. He blames the 3rd Division for always leaving a mess when they should focus on trying to find a much cleaner way to deal with the monsters. But since it cannot be helped with, Kafka continues doing his work, revealing that the government has strictly told the sweepers to get done with the cleaning process within a week, making their work a hellish job that will lead them to work all day and night in order to dispose of the monster's remains. One of the supervisors of the sweepers approaches Kafka and assigns him to deal with another area nearby, informing him that the sweepers are short-staffed there. However, that area is covered with kaiju's intestines, making Kafka's friends feel pity for him, as dealing with kaiju's intestines is the worst experience someone can ever have. So, when Kafka reaches the area, his body gives up, smelling the disgusting poop oozing out of the monster's intestines. But Kafka's will to get this job over with remains undeterred, so he quickly cuts everything down and returns home late at night, being done with his hellish job. Laying down in his bed after working so hard, Kafka turns on the TV to watch something wholesome, but fails to get over the disgusting smell that is still attached to his skin. He redirects his focus on the news about the 3rd Division and watches as the media glorifies the leader of that team, Captain Mina, who became in charge of that division at the young age of 27. Not only that, but she apparently has also slayed over 100 kaiju monsters already, making her one of the best elite fighters in their country. Kafka, who is overwhelmed by Mina's success, reveals that they were once very good friends when they were still kids. Back then, Kafka always wanted to be the one to eliminate Kaiju and encouraged Mina to join him on his mission. Mina, who was a literal crybaby back then, also became determined thanks to her friend's motivational words and achieved her goal of taking down those monsters who caused terror in her town. But unlike her, Kafka's dream failed, and now he has to work as a mere sweeper, whose job it is to clean up dead monsters' fresh poop. He wonders how things turned out to be this way and how he became such a loser. As midlife crisis begins to hit him hard, he calms himself down using the special coping mechanism, telling himself repeatedly that cleaning up the mess caused by Kaiju is also an important job in helping the people in his city. He consoles himself, stating that he has a nice room and can eat the foods that he likes. But he himself knows that isn't nearly enough to satisfy his hunger to do something good. In any case, he heads out to his workplace office of the sweepers the next day and meets with Ikikawa there, a part-time student who also wishes to work with them as a cleaner. Ikikawa apparently is only here for the experience of being around a kaiju because he wishes to join the defense corps one day. Hearing this, the higher-up of the sweepers named Tokuta laughs and tells Ikikawa that Kafka was also a daydreamer like him who wanted to join the defense corps. But that dream is now buried 12 feet under the ground. Ikikawa wishes to know why Kafka gave up on his dreams, and in response, Kafka tells him simply that his hard work and abilities weren't enough to become a member of the defense corps. So, he suggests that Ikikawa too stop wasting his time trying. However, Ikikawa gets offended by his advice and makes it clear that, unlike Kafka, he will never give up on his dream. Anyway, the cleaning job continues, and once again Kafka gets assigned to deal with the intestines, this time along with the new boy Ikikawa. Later, during lunch, Ikikawa loses his appetite completely, so Kafka gives him a vitamin drink and a pair of nose buds to feel better. This interaction leads them to bond with each other and enjoy working together more than before. After being done with the day's work, Ikikawa again approaches Kafka and thanks him for guiding him on his first day, admitting that if he weren't there to help, he wouldn't have been able to make it through the first day. He also lets Kafka know that Kafka's age limit to join the defense corps hasn't crossed yet, which means that Kafka can try to join the defense corps once again. Out of nowhere, a kaiju appears behind Ikikawa, opening its mouth to devour him. But thankfully, Kafka uses his quick reflexes to save the boy and drags him away from the monster, giving him a chance to escape. In the meantime, Kafka distracts the monster and runs away in the opposite direction from where Ikikawa ran off. He luckily finds a narrow entrance leading to a construction building, so he enters there and jumps off from the edge, knowing that the fall itself might end his life as well. At that moment, he remembers his time with Mina when she was crying over the fact that all of their friends' families, schools, and houses were destroyed by the Kaiju. He cheered up Mina, promising her that they would together take revenge on the Kaiju for what they did, and decided to join the defense corps to slay the Kaiju together. Back to the present, Kafka lands safe on the ground and still expresses his regrets over not being able to join the defense corps. He picks up a steel pipe to use as a weapon against the kaiju. However, he is nowhere strong enough to land a hit on the monster and gets himself badly injured with his right leg broken. As he gives up on his life, knowing he cannot escape, Ikikawa comes there to rescue him, telling him not to give up on his dreams. To save both the brave sweepers, a mysterious white tiger arrives there and takes care of the kaiju, eliminating it in the blink of an eye, which causes both Ikikawa and Kafka's jaws to drop completely. Mina appears before them, revealing herself to be the owner of the ferocious white tiger, but she doesn't even look at Kafka as if she is embarrassed by his presence and leaves immediately. After the battle, both Kafka and Ikikawa get admitted to a hospital to get their injuries treated. Kafka, who is in disbelief seeing how his childhood friend ignored his existence, doesn't judge her. Instead, he acknowledges her strength being so great that she was able to kill such a gigantic monster in an instant. Ikikawa grabs Kafka's attention and calls him a really amazing person for risking his own life to save others. And that is why he thinks that a person like Kafka should definitely join the defense corps. Kafka also realizes that he cannot just give up on his dreams just because he is slightly worse than the other candidates, and so he decides to give it another go at the entrance test again, thanking Ikikawa for motivating him to do so. At that moment, a small bird-sized kaiju appears in front of Kafka, and before he knows it, it reaches inside his body, turning him into a demonic Godzilla-shaped creature, or, as some would call it, a cheap rip-off of Overlord. Ikikawa, who watches the entire scene take place, becomes totally baffled by his senior's terrifying transformation, but he quickly realizes that, on the inside, he is the same guy as before. This sudden turn of events makes Kafka realize that if he doesn't run away for his life, the Defense Corps will soon find him and slay him. Kafka once again gets hit with a flashback involving Mina from their childhood days. Kafka was a big fan of anime and reading manga comics since the very beginning, which Mina thought was a complete waste of time. So, she made fun of him for his obsession with fictional stories and for thinking that he could be like one of the main characters of those mangas. But at the same time, she liked his silly behavior and his overprotectiveness and thanked him for always being beside her. Back to the present, Mina no longer has the same feelings inside her. She and her defense squad get informed about the sighting of a kaiju where the two sweepers, Kafka and Ikikawa, were hospitalized. So, she gets ready with her team to exterminate kaiju, knowing that if they don't act quickly, it will lead to unwanted casualties. Meanwhile, many social media pages, news channels, and emergency alarms also bring awareness of the kaiju sightings to the people of the town, prompting them to stay alarmed and safe in their homes. On the other hand, at the hospital, Kafka, who has turned into a kaiju, is doing a great job terrifying his fellow hospitalized old man. Ikikawa, being the only understanding person, tries to clear up the misunderstanding, telling the grandpa that Kafka is a human. Kafka also tries to show that a book shouldn't be judged by its cover and gives off a wholesome smile, which turns out to be so terrifying that it causes the old man to become unconscious. Kafka realizes that ugliness sometimes comes with its benefits as he discovers to have super strength in his current form. His accidental destruction of the hospital walls alarms the other patients, who immediately run off and call the Defense Corps to deal with miniature Godzilla. Ikikawa suggests that Kafka escape from there through the window to not get entangled with the Defense Corps and jumps off before him to give him the courage to also take the leap. Mina's team learns that the kaiju they are pursuing has fled from the hospital. So, they also change their route and rush in the direction where the kaiju ran off. Ikikawa, who can't believe his innocent senior has turned into a kaiju, questions how it can even be possible. While still running away from the sight of the public, Ikikawa turns around to see if Kafka is doing alright and finds out that Bro has mutated even more. It's as if he wasn't ugly enough already. He adds a disgusting attribute to himself as well and eats a bird alive using his parasitic tongue to grab it. After filling his appetite, Kafka reverts back to his original kaiju form when he realizes that more trouble is awaiting them. Ikikawa assumes that Kafka is about to be consumed by his inner demon. But Kafka explains that that is not the case and states that he has a sudden urge to pee. Not wanting to defame himself in public by peeing in the streets, Kafka wonders what he should do to protect his dignity. From what Ikikawa sees, he mentions that Kafka doesn't even have what is needed to do so, to which Kafka reveals that his kaiju version uses nipples to release things. At least men's nipples are finally functional now. Both Ikikawa and Kafka find this method of doing number one to be shocking, but they don't question it too much as they have other things to worry about. Ikikawa thinks that they should get going on their run, but Kafka expresses his desire to end his life, as he now knows no woman will ever think of marrying him because of what his nipples can do. It's mind-blowing that he thinks having piss nipples is the only roadblock to his marriage now after having turned into a monster. Anyway, Kafka figures that he can now join the Defense Corps now that he is super strong, but Ikikawa doesn't think that will ever happen because the Defense Corps is solely against creatures like Kafka, making Kafka realize that he will never be able to re-establish his friendship with Mina again. For now, he and Ikaikawa decide to hide behind a locked facility, when suddenly, Kafka senses that something is moving underneath their feet. As he realizes that it's another kaiju that is coming from underground, it breaks out in the open just around the block. Mina gets informed about the second kaiju's sighting, but upon learning that it's in the same area where their first target is, she continues moving towards that location with her team. Although Kafka wishes to fight this new kaiju using his newfound power, Ikaikawa stops him as he thinks it's the perfect chance for them to hide since the Defense Corps will be busy dealing with the kaiju. So, they go into hiding, which allows the monster to cause mass destruction in the area, leading to a little girl's entire family suffering an untimely death. The little girl desperately tries to free her mother from the rumble she is stuck in. Just as the monster comes there to feed on its prey, Kafka arrives there to save the day, and with a sucker punch, he launches the monster away from there. The little girl, who is initially scared by Kafka's appearance, quickly realizes that he isn't bad at all, so she seeks his help, asking him to save her dying mother. As they get busy rescuing the mother from under the rubble, it gives the monster enough time to get back there, telling Ikaikawa to take both the mother and child to safety. Kafka gets filled with determination to teach the monster a lesson. He punches as hard as he can with all the energy in him and launches an uppercut with so much power that it causes the monster to burst into nothing but an infinite amount of blood. With every single one of them realizing that Kafka is stronger than the entire defense force. The only question that is left to answer is how Kafka is going to get into good terms with the defense force. The little girl thanks Kafka for saving both her and her mother's lives, which makes him remember the time when Mina was about her age. She also thanked him for always being beside her. They wandered around in the fields, acting like heroes, as they both wanted to become one. This memory makes Kafka realize that he needs to join the defense force to be able to stand by Mina's side once again, and that desire itself lets him revert back to his human form again. Soon after, when Mina arrives with her team at the place where the monster appeared, she learns that a third party has already dealt with it, leaving only blood stains scattered everywhere. Wondering who this mysterious hero might be, Mina questions the living witness, who is none other than the little girl. As she asks the girl about who did this, the little girl claims that she saw a regular man-sized kaiju who destroyed the monster with a single uppercut. The little girl begs Mina not to hurt the kaiju who fought for mankind, calling him a good kaiju, which makes Mina wonder how in the world a monster is supposed to be considered good by any sane person. In any case, her team makes a drawing of Kafka's kaiju based on the little girl's testimony and names it Kaiju No. 8, which explains why the anime goes by that name. Apparently, the defense force only gives codenames to kaijus who they deem to be the most dangerous, and including Kafka, only 8 kaijus have been named up until now. Hey guys, since you are already here enjoying the video, why don't you also hit the subscribe button for your old pal L here? Only a small percentage of people who watch my videos actually subscribe. If we hit 300,000 subscribers, maybe I will send one of you a box of my mom's specially baked cookies. Anyway, back to the video. 3 months have passed since the first sighting of Kaiju No. 8. Both Ikaikawa and Kafka have started working as sweepers again, acting like nothing has happened at all. The sweepers there who have learned from the news that the Defense Corps has failed to locate Kaiju No. 8 for these past few months are baffled, because the Defense Corps has never failed this badly doing their task before. With every single law enforcement agency out looking for the Kaiju No. 8, everything is still going okay because no one knows that Kafka is the Kaiju No. 8. Ikaikawa reveals that both he and Kafka have taken the entrance exam of the Defense Corps, and it is the time of their result. As expected, Ikaikawa passes the first round of the entrance exams, who excitedly rushes to Kafka's work site, giving him the news that he too has passed the first round. Kafka, who was working alone in the cleanup site, reveals to be in his kaiju form, just chilling around having his lunch, and gets rightfully kicked in the stomach by Ikaikawa for taking things too lightly, even though he is currently the most wanted man in their country. Realizing that he shouldn't expose his kaiju form recklessly, Kafka apologizes to Ikikawa and wipes up his demonic face. However, the demonic teeth still remain even on his human face, which gets him scolded even more, as he should have mastered his transformation in these 3 months. While screaming and shouting at Kafka, Ikikawa informs him that his kaiju form is on the news, which means that everything is now public information, and if only one person sees Kafka in his kaiju form, he will be in grave trouble. Now that he understands everything, Ikikawa explains how they didn't get suspected of being at the hospital. He reveals that after defeating the monster back then, both of them went straight back to the hospital, claiming to have run away just around the corner to be safe from Kaiju's attacks, which fortunately fooled everyone. And yes, the old man saw both of them back then, but his statements won't have any credibility because of his old age. So, moving on, Kafka gets his results, but he doesn't become too happy about them, even though it was his dream to pass these exams once, which surprises Ikikawa. Kafka explains that he has always passed in the first rounds, so he isn't excited by it at all, and proudly reveals that he only fails every time in the second round of the selection. But now that he is overpowered, he is confident that he will win the second round smoothly as well. However, Ikikawa doesn't think Kafka will be able to use his superpowers in the second round because many experienced Defense Corps officers will be monitoring all of the examinees strictly. Even so, Kafka wants to try and give it his all because it is indeed his last chance to catch up to his old friend Mina. So, with both of the sweepers' goal of passing the second round, they start considering themselves rivals and get ready for what's about to come soon. Kafka tries to open up a bottle, but because he is too weak, he transforms into his kaiju form and opens it, which instantly makes Ikikawa realize that this cheater is about to get into big trouble in the second round. Anyway, 10 days later, the Defense Force Selection Test's second round is held at the West Tokyo venue. The two sweepers, Ikikawa and Kafka, arrive at the test site and are amazed by how big the Defense Forces headquarters in West Tokyo is. They notice that many armed soldiers are everywhere in the area, prepared to take care of any troubles, which makes Kafka realize that if he accidentally transforms there, he will be sent to an isekai world before deleting his browsing history. Many more candidates arrive there, one pink-haired guy on his bike, a green-haired hobo on foot, and a blonde in his tracksuits, who all motivate Kafka to give it his all against these youngsters. A rich young brat with 2 ponytails also arrives there, revealing to have her own butler, which means she probably already has connections who will let her enter the Defense Corps. She tries to get Kafka's attention, referring to him as uncle, and tells him to move his trash truck as she wants to park her luxury car there. Kafka mentions that there are many open spots, but the rich brat makes it clear that she wants her car to be parked there because she feels like it. As she picks up a fight with Kafka, the old man, he gets furious and decides to teach her some manners. But she shows how strong she is by lifting up Kafka's truck with her bare hands and throwing it away, making it clear that she cannot be messed with. Proudly introducing herself as Kikuru Shinomiya, just after throwing away Kafka's company car, she comes close to Kafka, accusing him of smelling just like how a kaiju usually smells. To avoid any suspicions, Ikikawa steps in, telling Shinomiya that Kafka only smells like a kaiju because he is a sweeper whose day-to-day work is to dispose of kaiju corpses. Ikikawa also mentions that he himself is a sweeper, which makes Shinomiya question what these lowlifes with no social statues think they are doing here taking part in the Defense Corps examination. Rather than giving her answer, Kafka goes back to his company truck, lifts it up using his bare hands, and parks it in an open spot, making it clear that he cannot be picked up on just because he is an old man who has no social status. Shinomiya, on the other hand, doesn't understand how a human has this much strength when he doesn't even own a private suit like her, which is why her strength was enhanced and increased 100 times more than usual. She realizes that she shouldn't mess with Kafka, so she instead directs her butler to park their car quickly before he can bring his mini truck back. Shinomiya, who had always thought that these entrance exams were just a formality with no competition whatsoever, finally thinks that things might take a turn to be interesting. Telling Kafka that she will soon take her revenge for the humiliation she faced now, she takes her leave and heads to the test hall with her butler and her 2 personal bodyguards. Ikikawa, in the meantime, becomes furious at Kafka because he thinks that there is no need for Kafka to show off his hidden powers to Shinomiya. He has already told Kafka many times that he cannot use his powers recklessly, as if something figures out that something is fishy, he will die at the hands of the Defense Corps, or, worse, become a lab experiment for the government. Realizing that he shouldn't have shown her powers to Shinomiya, Kafka apologizes to Ikikawa and promises that he will be more careful next time. Anyway, they get going and head inside the Defense Corps examination center, both fully determined that they will pass the test at any cost. The second round of the entrance exam soon begins, involving many physical tests, which causes Kafka to struggle in his human form. Even though he has worked really hard these past couple of months, he is failing to keep up with others and, in the end, barely completing the stamina test. He learns from Ikikawa that their next part of the physicals will be the fitness and aptitude test. Because not everyone has the talent for being an aptitude, Ikikawa suggests that Kafka give it his all in the fitness test. So, accordingly, Kafka gives it his all in the fitness test using only his human strength, but soon realizes that he has grown too weak because of his age. Being left behind, Kafka considers using his powers, but because of Ikikawa's warnings, he doesn't do it, and as a result, gets ranked in 6th place, from the bottom of the ranks, that is. On the other hand, Shinomiya, who has made it to the top of the ranks, flexes her result paper by showing it to Kafka, tells him that he should really learn his place, and reminds him of his low social status. Being left with no self-respect or dignity, Kafka wonders what he should do. But because he doesn't want to make the test unfair for others by using his kaiju powers, he begs Ikikawa to give him his invaluable guidance. On the other hand, Mina gets the list of applicants for this year, and after finding Kafka's application, she stops for a moment, implying that perhaps she still has some feelings for the guy who she has ignored for all these years. She learns more about the candidates from her subordinate, and according to him, the first person this year that strikes the eye is Haruichi Izumo, who has graduated at the top of his class from the most reputed university in Tokyo. Looking to be the most promising candidate of this year, Izumo has been ranked in 2nd place in the fitness exam. Ikikawa, who is also in the middle of telling Kafka about the candidates, tells him about another promising candidate named Iharu Furuhashi, who is ranked 3rd in the fitness exam and is basically gifted with super strength. Next up is the biggest deal of this year, Aoi Kaguragi, who is a newcomer in the self-defense force of Japan and has ranked 1st in the fitness exam. Although he was selected to become an elite in Japan's army force, he chose to come to the Defense Corps instead, as his goal is to defeat Kaijus. Just like these 3, there are many more promising applicants who are trying to become elite officers, and that is why it has made things difficult for a weak, nobody like Kafka to be able to attain a good rank in these exams. Ikikawa also mentions the youngest girl to have appeared as a candidate in this exam, the rich brat Shinomiya, who many people think of as the greatest talent ever to have existed, while the other top candidates are excitedly waiting to see how Shinomiya will perform. Kafka, on the other hand, only gets jealous of her. Not only that, he also gets belittled by her and beaten by her bodyguards in front of all the other candidates, who wonder what even is up with this old loser. Although being left humiliated by Shinomiya lowers Kafka's fighting spirit, he keeps his hopes high as the second part of their test is about disposing kaiju corpse, which is the sweeper's expertise. The 3rd Division of the Defense Corps Vice Captain Hoshina gathers all the candidates and begins the test, telling them to give it their best in the aptitude test. However, he surprisingly reveals that they will not be disposing of the kaiju corpses. Instead, they will be eliminated as living, breathing kaijus. Realizing that this is something not anyone can do, Kafka loses all hope of passing the second test. In any case, he and the other candidates wear their test gear, which is used by the Defense Corps. As everyone equips their combat suit, it not only enhances their strength physically, but also becomes connected with their body. making each and every neuron of their body more responsive than ever. With the best weapons to fight the Kaijus at their disposal, the candidates get ready for the battle. The operator takes a moment to tell everyone that their combat gear can unleash a specific amount of power in their body, and reveals that, like Ikikawa, the other top candidates have also become able to release almost 10–15% of their combat power. The operator also claims that the suit has only ever managed to unleash the suit's 20 powers in its first use. But when they learn that Shinomiya can unleash a staggering 46% of the suit's power, it becomes clear why she is known as the talent of the century. On the other hand, the talented middle-aged loser has failed to unleash any combat power, which makes the suit completely useless for combat. And that revelation also makes the test examiner burst out laughing, as he has never seen someone so talentless like him ever. Kafka tries to squeeze out his potential by bending his knees, but we all know what will happen if he continues to squeeze things in that position. Seeing Kafka trying to take a dump with his face all red, the test examiner Hoshina once again bursts out laughing, wondering what a comedian is doing in the Defense Force exam. Shinomiya, on the other hand, who has seen Kafka's super strength, gets annoyed at Kafka as she knows that he is deliberately hiding it from everyone. But anyway, with everyone going against Kafka's favor, the examiner Hoshina finally begins the final test. The instructor, Hoshina, takes all the participants to the field for the next stage of their competition. He tells them they will be fighting Hanju and 36 Yaju. They were the Kaijus that attacked the city some months ago, and they have been captured as test objects. They are risky and fearful, and as a result, a drone will be following all the participants to find out if they are terribly injured. If a participant is injured in such a way that he won't be able to continue, such participant will be given a shield and removed from the competition. However, it will also mean the participant has failed. Hoshina tips them all with the fact that that stage of the competition is the worst of it, and it is risky, so he won't advise any of them to participate, but if they want to, they should go. All the participants start the game, and they all watch as Kikaru rushes to climb the walls and kill the monsters. Within 2 seconds, she has successfully defeated Yaju 12 and Yaju 3. Ikikawa and Kafka watch her as she does all of these, and they wonder why they can't be as good as her. Kafka calls Ikikawa's attention, telling him they have to kill some of the Yajus too. On the other hand, Ikikawa also feels inspired to fight and claims that it is his line, and he has to kill enough of Yaju too. Unfortunately, they do not have any equipment to aid their shooting, and they aren't armed for combat. This makes them so annoyed, wondering how Kikaru can defeat so many Yaju while they can't do anything. As they wallow in this, they hear another announcement from Hoshina, who informs them that Mina Ashiro is also there to engage in the competition, and they should welcome her with their great works. Thinking of the history he has with her, Kafka doesn't want to lose it all. He asks Ikikawa if he knows the reason why the seniors have decided to use drones and stalk them. He feels if it is to know the number of Kaijus that each of them killed, they can do that by checking the sensors of their body. Hence, he thinks the reason is to find out how they are going to participate in the combat, the emotional intelligence of all the fighters, and how they make difficult decisions in face of danger. As a result, even if they don't have combat weapons to fight the Kaijus, they should aid the others who are more equipped for that purpose. Ikikawa thinks about his suggestions, and they leave to aid the others. They watch some of their colleagues trying to shoot a kaiju to no avail, and when Kafka looks well, he realizes he has once fought that kaiju before. He gets the key of how to defeat it, and he throws a grenade at the kaiju. He informs the others that the kaiju has very short sight but sharp hearing, so now that he has blocked his ears, he won't be able to hear the shots and they can defeat him. He also advises them that they should shoot the kaiju in the stomach because the stomach is the most delicate part of a kaiju, and they will defeat it that way. The boys take his advice, and they are shocked to realize he is right. They call him Kikaru's family, and he screams that he has his personality too. He continues with Ikikawa to find his next target. On his way, a Yaju captures him in his hands and throws him at the wall. He loses some ribs and some organs on the body while Ikikawa calls out for him. Hoshina finds out on his sensors that he is almost dying, and they also see that the Yaju is going closer to him. Kafka recalls that if he gets weak and unable to continue or escape, he will be shielded from the competition, and that will also mean he has failed. He doesn't want to fail that competition, so he tries to struggle. Hashiro communicates to him that his organs are failing, and since they don't want any casualty, they will shield him out. Hashiro comments that he knows Kafka will be one of the first people to lose, and despite having a great personality and being funny, he is nothing but weak. Just as they are about to shield him, a gunshot from behind kills the Yaju. He is glad that someone has saved him from that embarrassing situation, but his helper is no one else but Kikaru. She tells him she has only saved him so he won't disturb her mission, and he should continue lying lifelessly on the floor like a coward that he is, while she goes ahead to kill all the kaijus around. She leaves, and Hashiro informs Kafka that his spine has broken. His organs are failing and his legs are so weak that he can't walk from that place. He asks him if he wants to give up, but Kafka thinks about all he has lost to get to that place. At that point, his manpower is at 0, and there is no way he can survive. He screams and says he isn't giving up. He insists that the only person who can make him give up is himself, and he is tired of embarrassing himself in front of the person he wants to live and support. He admits that the only way he can be beside her is by standing strong and not giving up, and he has gone too far to stop now. Everyone wonders where his newfound strength is emitting from, as he declares that he has laid his life to get to that point, and even if it will take his life, he won't give up. His manpower moves to 0.1% as he struggles with his broken legs to stand up and continue the fight. Will he survive? Kafka recalls all he has to lose in the situation, and he doesn't want to take any loss. He rises on his feet and decides he will continue the journey. He screams as they watch him in the situation room, and they are shocked he is standing because his legs are completely broken. Hashiro warns him that he has internal bleeding, and if he insists he wants to continue the competition, he can go on. But if he gets too weak to continue, they will activate his shield, which means he will lose. He insists that he will continue and tells Ikikawa that he should proceed with the competition. To his shock, Ikikawa stretches his hands to him and asks him to come. He recalls a situation where he was also weak, and Ikikawa came through for him. He admits that Ikikawa is a person for all situations and tells Ikikawa that if they survive every other competition together, they can survive that one. He climbs on Ikikawa so that Ikikawa can be his legs and he can continue the journey. They watch them in the situation room, and they laugh. Hoshiro mocks that even if they aren't accepted into the team for their skills, they should be accepted for their comic relief because they are both a bit of a mess. They continue their competition, and the other players stare at them because they look like fools. Ikikawa complains that their colleagues are looking at them, but Kafka encourages him that he doesn't have to care, and that as long as they complete the game, they are fine. He asks Ikikawa to find Kikaru so they can support her. On the other hand, the players confront the last kaiju, and it is stronger than they had expected. The others try their best to defeat it, but their efforts aren't productive. As expected, Kikaru jumps into the scene and tells them they can't defeat her. She jumps at the kaiju, and she shoots at it. She tries to finish up the kaiju, but it is a little greater than her. Kafka urges Ikikawa to carry him faster so they can get to Kikaru and ensure they help her defeat the kaiju. Ikikawa is tired because Kafka is heavier than he had expected, but he finds it difficult to say this to Kafka. Kafka encourages him to use their shield power to support himself so they can get to Kikaru. As Ikikawa runs faster, Kafka gets exhausted too. At the fight, Kikaru finds a loose part of the kaiju, and she raises the last attack. She successfully gives it a last shot and kills the last kaiju. She breathes a sigh of joy as she wins the battle for her team, and they proceed to the next stage of the competition. The situation in the situation room is shocking. Hoshina had expected that most of the contestants would lose at that point. He felt he would be able to send off at least 30 of the competitors, and at that point, none of them had been disqualified. And the worst that had happened to them all was injury. They all admitted that they had gotten the result they didn't expect, and they acknowledged that the only reason the competitors could survive to that extent was because of Kikaru. They all know Kikaru is the daughter of director Shinomiya, and they exclaim that they couldn't have expected the director's daughter to be mid. She looks like she would be a very great plus to the defense team because she is supportive and ensures her teammates are in good shape. At the field, she is satisfied with what she has done that day, and she looks at the sky, wondering if her father is proud of her and if he feels she is now doing as great as he thinks she will do. On the other hand, Ikikawa has eventually dripped kafta from his back. Since the first part of the game has ended, they hope for the best, and they anticipate the result to know if they will qualify for the next stage. Suddenly, Kikoru gets shot. It takes her a second to understand what is going on, and she concentrates her energy on that part of her injury so she can survive. Kafta speaks with Ikikawa about Kikoru, being one of the only times that they had encountered her. They admit that she is the beast they think she is. She is the strongest of the team, and she is supportive, a plus to any team they find themselves. If only they know the hero has been shot too. Kikoru concentrates her shield on her chest to survive. She wonders which kind of kaiju had shot her. The directors in the situation room are also too distracted. Kikoru heals her injury, and the kaiju speaks to her, asking her what is happening in her body. She is shocked to see a kaiju speak, and she admits that it is one of higher intelligence. After she heals herself, she tries to fight back. There is an emergency alarm in the situation room, and Hoshiro tries to find out what has happened. They find out there is an anomaly in the kaiju, and the dead ones are reviving with more than 6 points of intelligence. Those are highly intelligent kaiju that only himself and probably Ashiro can defeat. Ashiro commands him to ask all the students to use the nearest shelter and also try to evacuate the students while she goes to fight the kaiju. They announce to the students to leave, and they all start running, but Kikoru refuses. She insists she doesn't want to be a coward and make her father proud. She stands up, but the kaiju shoots her again and throws her to the wall. She remembers her childhood when one of her school results was released, and she was the first in the class. Other students who got lower results than her were encouraged by their parents, but her father wasn't even available to celebrate her. The butler tells her that her father will return that night, and she tells her father about her result. Instead of encouraging her, he asks her what she feels and if she thinks one success is enough for her. He says if he hypes her for one success, it will breed failure. He reminds her of her duty to the country and how she must make her late mother proud. For the sake of her mother, Shinomiya refuses to lose, and with the determination to win burning inside of her heart, she steps towards the monster with her gun. The monster smashes her away against the wall, but she gets up again, taking an oath to keep moving until she subdues the kaiju. With the wish and her father's command to become the strongest ever to be on a battlefield, Shinomiya continues to fight even though her hand has given up. As she unintentionally drops the gun from her hand, she realizes that the bones in her hand have broken into pieces, meaning that there is no way she can continue. Meanwhile, the examiners, who have been keeping a keen eye on Shinomiya, send aerial support to assist her, knowing that something's wrong, and as they get the visual of the kaiju, it baffles them as no other kaiju prior to this one has shown such amazing regenerative abilities. The lead analyst also notices that the kaiju is gathering energy inside its horn to release a massive attack on Shinomiya. So, she immediately informs both Mina and Hoshina, who rush to save her as she is the greatest talent in this century. Unfortunately, they did not reach there in time, causing Shinomiya to give up and bend on her knees, accepting her death by the kaiju. At death's door, she apologizes to her father for letting him down and for not being perfect enough. Kafka comes there just in time, telling Shinomiya to not give up just yet and rescuing her from being blasted away by the evolved kaiju. Speaking of which, he himself evolves into his kaiju form in order to fight the kaiju and, without any hesitation, shows her his true overpowered form. Meanwhile, the other candidates continue to fight the kaijus and begin evacuating the area, as all of the kaijus in that area keep on regenerating over and over. Ikikawa, on the other hand, hopes that Kafka isn't going to end up being taken down by the Defense Corps after they see them in his kaiju form. Ikikawa reveals that when he and Kafka were about to evacuate as well, Kafka heard from a senior that Shinomiya's life was in danger. So, without even discussing it with Ikukawa, Kafka unhesitantly rushed to that area to save her. Speaking of them, Shinomiya becomes speechless after learning that the old man she has been teasing all day is actually a kaiju. Kafka, in his terrifying form, surprisingly gets down on his knees and begs Shinomiya not to tell the defense corps that he can turn into a kaiju because they will definitely eliminate him if they learn the truth. The monster tries to interrupt their conversation by launching an energy blast on them, but Kafka simply sends the attack the other way by simply punching it away. Knowing that the monster isn't going to stop, Kafka gets up and tells Shinomiya that he will explain everything to her once he is done dealing with this monster. The lead analyst, who doesn't have visuals of Shinomiya's situation, detects that there is a strong surge of energy that is impossible for even a kaiju to generate, making her suspect that Kaiju number 8 has shown up there. She informs Hoshina about the readings, but he calls it a system glitch, as there is no chance that someone can generate so much energy. Kafka, in the meantime, turns on Super Saiyan mode, and with the most powerful packed punch, he reduces the kaiju to nothingness, leaving Shinomiya in awe as she herself did not succeed in even damaging it at all. Anyway, Kafka gets rid of all of the other nearby kaijus as well, and then recontinues his prior conversation with Shinomiya, begging her once again not to report him to the defense corps. He returns to his original human form and expresses how glad he is that Shinomiya is safe. Ikukawa comes there, banging his hand on Kafka's face for taking the risk of being exposed like that. While the two argue over nothing, Shinomiya faints because of the excess blood loss. Hoshina and Mina arrive at the location where they find the monsters to be reduced to nothingness, causing them to question who is behind the kaijus execution. But the investigation part is over, and their main priority is the examinee's safety. So, once they learn that Kafka and Ikukawa have brought Shinomiya safely back to the base, they are left relieved. Mina issues the investigation unit to find out who or what did this to the kaiju here, and, in the meantime, heads with Hoshina to the other locations to get rid of the kaijus who are still left alive. With the examination coming to an end, Kafka is sent to the Defense Corps hospital, even though he is not too injured. Ikukawa visits him and lets him know that Shinomiya is doing well as well and only needs to get her right arm fixed because it's completely broken down to the core. Mina, who reveals to have been eavesdropping on their conversation, musters up enough courage to visit Kafka, who is just as surprised as Ikukawa, not because she has ignored him her whole life, but because she is the top dog of the Defense Corps. Mina, who has heard that it was Kafka who had carried Shinomiya back to safety, thanks him for rescuing her, giving him a salute of honor. She says nothing else and takes her leave. But Kafka doesn't stop her, as he has taken the oath that he will only confront her after becoming a Defense Corps officer. On the other hand, Shinomiya, who has been suffering mentally for not being perfect enough, is visited by Hoshina, who comes to interrogate the situation as to who was responsible for subjugating the kaiju. However, she doesn't tell him the truth and claims that it was she who defeated kaiju. Soon after, it becomes public news that kaijus can now come back to life even after being reduced to nothing, which scares the general public. The intelligent kaiju, who perhaps was responsible for letting those kaijus attain such regenerative abilities, also hears the news but gets shocked upon learning that none of those mutated kaijus survived, which makes him wonder if the captains of the Defense Corps are that strong to be able to subdue them. Being left disappointed, the intelligent kaiju transforms his human form to blend in with the humans. But what's more surprising is that he is one of the new sweepers on Kafka's team, indicating that there will soon be a confrontation between the two transformers. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching this video, guys. As always, stay safe and take care.